Hello everyone, here we got a few pairs of cheap speakers that we're gonna be blowing today. So here are our victims. We got a pair of Coby surround speakers. There's no model number on it. All it says is that they're 4 ohms and 10 watts. And this pair of Teac bookshelf speakers that are rated at 8 ohms and 3 watts. And at the bottom, we got this pair of Memorex speakers. I initially thought they were bookshelf speakers, but they probably came from a surround system because the label on the back says front speakers. These are the MX5520 speakers, and they're rated at 4 ohms. So these speakers have a good sized woofer, or at least that's what they want you to think. It's actually a cheap 4-inch speaker with a paper cone tweeter. So let's get started. Let's start off with one of the Cobys. So these speakers actually have an RCA plug input, although this one is broken. So what I'll be doing is cutting off the plug and stripping it down to bare wire. Now that the wire is stripped, I can plug it into my amplifier so that we can blow this speaker. So for this one, I'll just leave the dust cap on because it is a screen-like texture and it would look cool to see smoke seeping out from there. So I'll mark it so that we could watch this thing move. And now, let's see how it does. That was funny. A poof of smoke. Alright. Let's see if there's smoke seeping out of there. Aw, yeah. That's what I'm referring to. Huh. This speaker somehow smells like burnt wood. That's weird. Now let's check out the other Coby speaker. So I just realized that these speakers are wired out of phase. So the red wire usually represents the positive, but it is actually soldered onto the negative terminal of the speaker. I don't know how that works, but it's pretty weird. Even though these speakers have an RCA plug input, you probably will have to strip the wires to connect it to a sound system. And if you hook it up according to the color of the wires, the speaker wouldn't be in the correct polarity, and that wouldn't be good. I don't care about these speakers anyways, so it doesn't really matter as much. Now I have the speaker connected in the correct polarity, and I have a second camera angle so that you could get a side view. And since the speaker is outside of its cabinet with the dust cap removed, I'm expecting to see more smoke than the other speaker. And once again, I marked the speaker so that we can see its movement better. And now let's fry it. Whoa! We got a spit of fire! Would you look at that? The speaker began to spit its coil out. And I'm curious if the other one spat its coil too. Let's find out. Aw, yeah. It did. These speakers gave a pretty good smoke show. Now let's check out one of the Teac speakers. I used to pronounce it Teac, but I eventually realized that they're pronounced the other way. But anyways, we have a cheap paper cone speaker with a foam surround, which tends to decay over time, and that tweeter is actually fake. This cover is actually separate from the rest of the speaker, so I'll take it off so that you can see the tweeter better. So the cone is just plastic. However, the dust cap disguises a piezo disc tweeter, which you could see through the back port. Enough with the talking, and let's get to the action. Well, that wasn't too much. It just died in a poof of smoke. That one smells like paint. And now, let's check out one of the Memorex speakers. So, they have a flimsy paper cone woofer, also with a foam surround. And it has a real tweeter. If you look in the giant porthole, you might think there's acoustic insulation, but really that's not the case. They only did a section of it so that it looks like it. So here's an idea on how big the port is. I was playing around with a GoPro-like action camera, and I wanted to see if I could get an inside view of the speaker. The camera wasn't recording, but my finger slipped and it fell inside. But don't worry, I'll be getting these speakers open so that I could access the crossover capacitor and the tweeter. I believe the coil is the same size as the Teacs. And now, let's kill this speaker. We got a good smoke show. I spent the next few minutes taking the speaker apart, and it definitely wasn't meant to be taken apart in any way. They just glued this plastic part onto this wooden cabinet. Now that I got it apart, I can now retrieve my action camera. Here it is. Still in pretty good shape. And now let's check out the drivers. So the woofer is labeled TH. It's rated at 4 ohms and 10 watts. And here is the crossover capacitor for the tweeter. And the tweeter is also labeled TH. And it's rated at 4 ohms and 2 watts. I bypassed the capacitor and I now have the tweeter connected to the amplifier. So I'll remove the dust cap and let's blow this tweeter. That wasn't eventful. So here's the other Memorex speaker. And the easiest way to take these apart is by putting a screwdriver along the cracks and then hitting it with a hammer. And then prying it open. There we go. Alright, now I need to do that 6 more times until I finally pry this plastic cover off. So this speaker was more difficult to take apart than the last one, and I actually broke the front cover off. Well, that doesn't really matter. All that matters is that we got access to the speakers. This time, we'll be starting off with the tweeter. Although I accidentally pushed the dust cap in, well, that doesn't really matter since I'll be taking it off anyways. So I'll be taking it slower than the other one so that we could see some smoke before it finally gives up. So without further ado, let's blow this tweeter. there was a small puff of smoke. At least we got something from the other tweeter. And I haven't forgotten about the other Teac. Let's see what's inside. Well, that was a lot easier to take apart than those Memorex speakers. As you could see, they used hot glue to hold the plastic panel onto the wooden cabinet. You could see a little better how they put the tweeter together. So, it is a piezo disc glued onto a piece of plastic that resembles a real tweeter. And check this out. You could see that there are extra screw holes so that you could easily replace it with a real tweeter if you want. And the crossover for the piezo is a single resistor instead of a capacitor. The label on the back says the speaker is 8 watts, but really it is 5 watts. So for the grand finale, I'm going to be blowing the remaining Teac and Memorex speakers at the same time, and we'll see which one lasts the longest. I'm assuming the Memorex will, since it is rated at a higher wattage. So here we go. It's a race. And I was correct. The Memorex speaker lasted the longest. They're both nice and crispy. Now I have all the speakers right here, and it's about time that I'll be dissecting into them so that we could see what the coils look like in the aftermath. So we'll start off with the Cobys, and we'll work our way to the Memorex speakers. So here's the first Coby speaker, which I blew in the cabinet. So here's the coil. It's nice and roasted. And now let's tear into the other Coby speaker. Well, looks about the same. Now let's move on to the Teac speakers. Since the battery on my main camera was very low, I'm now using my cell phone camera. Anyways, let's see how the Teac speaker did. So that's why there wasn't very much smoke. There wasn't very much copper on the coil. And now, let's see how the other Teac speaker did. These speakers don't have very much copper in them. And now, let's check on the Memorex speakers. So, we'll be starting off with a tweeter. Well, the coil on the tweeter isn't very burnt. No wonder it didn't give any smoke. Let's see if the woofer is any better. Well, the woofer hardly burned. One of the leads burned before the rest of the coil did. Just like the other Memorex speaker, I'll be starting off with a tweeter. I'm expecting the coil to be more toasted since this one actually gave some smoke. Let's find out. Well, here it is. Not very much to it. And I'm assuming it's the same thing with the woofer. And it seems that the voice coil is stuck inside the magnet, so we couldn't see it. Unless if I tried to take it out. Dang it. I broke my X-Acto knife in the process. Oh well, I have plenty of more blades. So here's the voice coil from the first Memorex speaker, and I believe it still has some life in it. Let's find out. Cool. We got some smoke, and I saw a spark. And here's the voice coil from the tweeter. Just like the woofer, it didn't really burn, so I'm assuming it still has some life left. Without further ado, let's fry it. And this time, we got a lot more smoke. That was pretty neat. Well, that's it for this pile of junk. I might keep the Teac speaker cabinets because I think they look pretty cool with the wood design, and I might make a better pair of speakers with them. So, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.